Whenever a Fire Emblem game introduces a rare, one-of-a-kind weapon that I've never seen before, it gets me really curious why it's even there to begin with. The first time I saw Binding Blades, Owl's Sword, Gant's Lance, and Tiana's Staff, I was like, who are these characters? And it turns out they were nods to the Fire Emblem manga Hasha no Tsurugi, or Champion's Sword. What started out as a side story set in a lib at the same time of FE6 ended up being a 4-year running manga that became an alternative story of FE6's events altogether. It was a cool Easter egg to fans of both Fire Emblem and Shonen Jump. Radiant Dawn has a lot of unique weapons like this too, usually in the form of PRF weapons or S ranks. All have some kind of etymological background that might not necessarily contribute to the actual world building of Tellius, but may reference certain languages, iconic mythology from real cultures, and or weapons used throughout human history. In Three Houses, it does the Easter eggs and real world inspirations, but also has many weapons that directly reference Fódlan's world itself, sometimes doing the latter two quite literally at the same time. This video is a deep dive into how Three Houses' unique weapons found the inspiration behind their names, and where possible, how they were created in Fódlan and why they're there. In this video, we're covering the quote-unquote good guy weapons, aka the Zoltan Weapons, the Archanea Regalia, and last but certainly not least, a big section on the sacred weapons. The next video will focus entirely on every single weapon created by the Agarthans, including Aymr, the Dark Creator Sword, certain Agarthan preferred weapons like Radil and Athame, and the Heroes Relics. I learned quite a bit of Fódlan, and especially a ton of quote-unquote real-world lore, you get what I'm trying to say, researching this video, and hopefully you do as well. But first, a message from today's sponsor, Girls Frontline 2 Exilium. The game's first anniversary update is now live. This update offers over 130 free pulls and over 13,000 collapse pieces. This new update features the new doll, Robella, and her elite weapon, the Wanderer Magnum. There's also new outfits to be purchased on a limited time discount for Robella and Suomi's Christmas outfit. There's also a new weapon skin, Shining Horizon, available for a limited time discount. Before diving into the new doll and limited time events, let's take a brief look at the combat of Girls Frontline 2. As the commander, you lead your soldiers, named dolls, by careful positioning, managing terrain bonuses and penalties, exploiting enemy weaknesses, and strategically using your soldiers' abilities to secure victory in this turn-based tactical RPG. Outside of combat, you will be strengthening and customizing your units, building their weapons and skills, changing their look, and getting to know the dolls personally in the refitting room and dormitory. New story scenes await players too. Before January 7th, you can log into the game and claim the item Time Capsule Pulse Racing Night to unlock Macchiato's story for free. You can also claim 35 outfit access permissions for free. They can help you unlock Klukai's new outfit, Cerulean Breaker. Once you get it, you can also get the item Time Capsule Body Maintenance Technician to unlock Klukai's story. Both Macchiato's and Klukai's scenes feature interactive, branching narratives as well. If you log in now, you can start participating in the event Deep Oblivion Part 2. Participate in the game's modes to earn rewards like collapse pieces, targeted access permissions, and more. Sign in or download the game for the first time using my link or scan the QR code on screen and participate in the game's first anniversary event. And thank you Girls Frontline 2 Exilium for sponsoring today's video. Let's start with the Zoltan Weapons. The artisan Zoltan is a famous blacksmith in Fódlan. Unused in-game files reveal that he comes from the Sreng region, a desolate region where the Sreng people live. It's said that Zoltan, the master swordsmith, once lived there, so there may be valuable weapons waiting to be discovered. As per the artisan profession, he wasn't just a blacksmith, he was also a craftsman, creating the Zoltan's Beast Idol gift. That's description reads, a valuable idol created by the master craftsman Zoltan, who was widely thought to have only made weapons. There are 4 Zoltan weapons in the game: the sword, the lance, axe, and bow. In Three Houses, they don't possess any special effects, but are one of the strongest normal weapons in the game. They're scattered throughout the game as enemy drops and treasure, and there's more than one of each kind, but they cannot be bought in armories. Interestingly though, Zoltan gets name dropped in Felix and Dimitri's B support. We may actually be able to identify when Zoltan lived. In Three Hopes, we find a document called the Military History of Partholon, which tells us that in the 890s, Sreng invaded Fargus during the Crescent Moon War, only for Fargus to beat them back, establishing the Margraviate of Gautier and the modern border between Sreng and Fargus. The conquest of land from Sreng would see people of Sreng living under Fargus, allowing for an exchange of goods and practices between the two peoples that normally wouldn't be possible due to Fódlan's isolationism. This is emphasized by another Three Hopes item, a drinking horn you can get from Rodrigue if you give him the Merc Whistle, which is stated to be used in the Northern Kingdom and Sreng. Such a connection goes even deeper when one considers considers the design of the Sword of Zoltan. The sword has the blade of a late Roman Germanic spatha, the crossguard of an early medieval Carolingian/Viking sword, and the pommel of a late medieval knightly arming sword. The Carolingian influence is notable as the developers themselves state that the Frankish Carolingians were an inspiration of Fargus, most clearly seen with the historical division of the kingdom into Western Mock, Central Fargus, Eastern Leicester Archduchies, which lines up with the Frankish Empire being split into 3 kingdoms, East, Middle, and West. Additionally, the Viking Age was at its height after the Carolingian Empire was divided. This lines up with the time frame of the Sreng War in the 890s, as Conan Tower was built during that war.
The thieves have taken Conan Tower as their base. There it is in the distance.
This area was the site of a massive battle several hundred years ago, when invasions from the north were at their peak. This tower was built for both surveillance and defense. It will be difficult to seize it.
All these details taken together create a very interesting story seen just in the construction of the Sword of Zoltan. In other words, it's a melding of smithing practices, an evolutionary stage of sorts between the early kingdom and late kingdom mixed with the styles of Sreng. The Archanea Regalia. Various Archanea Regalia appear to have ended up in the world of Fódlan at some point. The Gradavis in 3 Houses is described as a lance wielded by a brave defender of Fódlan's throat, boasting high hit rate and might. There is only one recorded battle taking place at the throat, with all others being specifically at Fódlan's locket. And so, this spear may actually be an alliance weapon. Ashe and Ingrid's B support described a warrior who fought at the Battle of Fódlan's throat who defended the Duke. Fódlan's locket is controlled by the Duchy of Goneril, so the knight was likely sworn to the Gonerils. However, it could refer to any of the other duchies of Fódlan, as Adrestia and Fargus both played roles in the battle. Mercurius, a legendary sword with high hit rate and might used in the War of the Eagle and Lion. It being used in the War of the Eagle and Lion potentially makes Kaifon of Fraldarius its wielder, evidenced by the C and B support of Ashe and Ingrid. The C support mentions a story called the Sword of Kaifon, Kaifon being a supposed Fraldarius relative who fought with a sword in the War of the Eagle and Lion, and the B support references the battle where Gradavis was used. With the conflicts in which these 2 weapons were used being mentioned sequentially in the same support chain, it's likely not a mere coincidence, and these were possibly the actual contexts of these weapons. Parthia, a bow infused with fiery power boasting high hit rate and might. There's no known connection to it and Fódlan's lore as the weapons I just mentioned and the Haute Claire. The Parthian Empire in our own world was an empire that ruled over Iran and Persia for centuries and battled the Romans. The term Parthian shot refers to the act of a mounted archer shooting their bow behind them while their horse flees away from the enemy, and the Almiran flag has a mounted archer. The conflict between Leicester and Elmira is similar to the Roman-Iranian wars, with Fódlan's locket equating to the famous Roman fortress of Dara that fought off many invasions. Given Elmira's Iranian-Persian influence and the fact that Claude has Parthia in Heroes, the lack of information could be that its history is mostly unknown to Fódlan due to its Elmiran origin, and Elmira not really being a terribly focused region in either game. The Haute Claire is an Empire Wyvern Core axe wielded in the War of Heroes that has a high hit rate and might. Like the Parthia, there's not much to extract from its place in this game, but its description to it being an Empire Wyvern Core axe is most likely a reference to its appearance in the Archanea remakes, being the weapon that Minerva, the wyvern-riding princess of Macedon, wields. Here's some trivia. The usage of these weapons for the brave alts of the 3 lords in Fire Emblem Heroes is a little funny though. Gradavis has a connection to the Alliance, but Dimitri uses it in Fae. Mercurius does actually have a connection to Fargus, but is not featured as a weapon in the banner at all. Parthia has no hard connection to 3 Houses lore, but Claude of course uses it in Fae. That said, Haute Claire does have a connection to the Empire and is fittingly wielded by Edelgard. There is also the Dragon Claws, said to have slain a legendary beast, effective against dragons, and can attack twice if initiating combat, which is basically just a special type of claws that understandably have no connection to the Archanea Regalia, but given the description, maybe the blades are dragon fangs and they're like gauntlet falchions. The Sacred Weapons. The functional similarity between all sacred weapons is that they all provide a bonus of passive healing to all units, with those bearing particular crests receiving the most bonuses. In universe, it's said between Houses and Hopes that all sacred weapons seen in the Fódlan games were created by both Indek and Macule, with Indek doing the actual craftsmanship while Macule imbued them with magic. The weapons were created with the purpose of empowering the forces of the Church, namely the Four Saints, and the Adrestian Empire during the War of Heroes. Yet in spite of this, many sacred weapons are compatible with crests originating from the 10 elites, i.e. the Axe of Ukonvasara being tuned to the crest of Gloucester, the Sword of Moralta and Begalta being attuned for the crests of Fraldarius and Regan, etc., which were on the complete opposite side of the conflict. The in-universe implications of this is that at some point during the War of Heroes, the following could have happened. Descendants of the 10 elites bearing their crests deserted to the Empire, thus explaining why Indech and Macul would agree to craft weapons attuned for users of these crests to begin with. Or Nabateans of different dragon types in human form like Scythe and Flame were given sacred weapons forged and imbued by Indech and Macul, or Indech and Macul may have just casually made weapons to eventually find their use in wars. What makes these sacred weapons additionally super cool is that not only were they all created by Indech and Macul, but almost all of their names pull from multiple cultures and myths in human history. The only four that don't really pull from any real-world mythology are the Sword of Saros, Saros' Shield, the Inexhaustible, and the Windcaller's Genesis. The latter being a direct reference to Macul, the one before that referencing the durability and longevity of Indech, and then Saros' Sword and Shield just being Saros' Sword and Shield. And in a way, the Saints are legendary mythological figures within the world of Fódlan itself. There's a lot of ancient Old Norse or Old Irish names that I'll do my best to pronounce. I tried to consult some pronunciation guides, so hopefully I don't butcher most of these. Let's start with the Sword of Moralta, a sword attuned to the crest of Fraldarius. This is a likely transliteration of Moralta, also known as the Great Fury, a magical sword wielded by Diarmuid Udivnia. It is said that it left no stroke nor blow unfinished. The sword itself is very broad and large, possibly to symbolize the martial strength of Fraldarius as the right hand ablated. Next is the Sword of Begalta, a transliteration of Begalta, the Little Fury. It was Diarmuid's other sword he uses in the myth. It is visually less broad, but otherwise very similar to Moralta. The contrasts between both swords in the myth are very fascinating, and the connection to a wild boar in the myth is also very noteworthy. Not to go into a deep tangent about the myth, but the long and short of it is, the Moralta was originally Menanon MacLear, the Irish god of the sea's divine sword, and had Diarmuid brought the sword with him, he'd be able to kill the boar, but he refuses to bring it due to perhaps his pride as a warrior, and perhaps as an act of defiance against Grania, who not only forced him to elope with her upon threatening him with a divine agreement, but is also having visions of the boar killing him. And so he brings his still formidable Begalta and one of his trusty spears instead. In Three Houses, Felix has a contentious relationship with Dimitri, whom he constantly calls a boar. Felix is also the only character in the game with the crest of Fraldarius, as if to say that Felix, Moralta's rightful wielder, is the one willing to confront Dimitri the most fearlessly for his violent tendencies. But this romantic conjecture of mine kind of just narratively falls flat with regards to the Sword of Begalta, and that's probably because of this funny trivia. Both Moralta and Begalta actually have the crest of Chevalier engraved in it, so there were clearly some changes in the weapon's lore after the design was finalized. Given that Chevalier is only really relevant in DLC as it's Balthus' crest and is the crest stone within the Vajramushti, it's possible they swapped both swords' place, the former becoming a gift from Rodrigue and the latter being an item drop from Macul to diversify lore and gameplay. The Spear of Assal, Scythe or Keyhole's weapon used in the War of Heroes and present day. The in-game model is very ceremonial in design. It's designed closer to a polearm than a typical throwing spear. The dragon's wings show wear and tear from the literal centuries of battles Scythe has with it. A very neat, small, and subtle detail seen in its in-game art model and is more easily noticed in his Fire Emblem Heroes art. In Irish myth, the Spear of Assal is claimed by Lugh Lavada after the three sons of Tyrinn, Brienne, Ukar, and Ukarva, died of exhaustion upon their return from their quest to retrieve weapons and items as punishment for killing Lugh's father. Labraunda, a battle axe attuned to the crest of Saros. This battle axe is first seen in Three Hopes, used by Edelgard. In this game, she neither claims the Sword of Saros for herself in Silver Snow, nor is she given the Aymr by the Agarthans due to her early betrayal in Three Hopes. In the real world, Labraunda is an ancient archaeological site in ancient Caria, which is now Turkey, and Zeus Labraundus was the god who the ancient Carians worshipped. This version of Zeus wielded a scepter in one hand and a labrys, a double-headed axe, in his right hand. The Labraunda in Three Three Hopes combines both items wielded by the Carian Zeus into one long battle axe, which we see her wield with both hands. The Axe of Ukonvasara, a large battle axe found within the church ruins attuned to the crest of Gloucester. It interestingly also deals effective damage to armored units. Given that both Lysithea and Lawrence possess the Gloucester crest but are geared towards magic over strength, this attribute may functionally and thematically represent the axe's magical nature in real-world myth by piercing armor defense. In Finnish myth, this was a hammer wielded by the Finnish god of thunder, Ukko. The axe's blade design is likely inspired by the Ukonvasara pendant. Similar to how Christians wear the cross around their necks, followers of Finnish paganism wear this for protection and as a symbol of devotion. The Tathlum Bow, a sacred weapon attuned to the crest of Lemine, which oddly is found exclusively in Azure Moon by a sniper reinforcement on Chapter 18. Functionally, Mercedes doesn't make great use of the bow despite having a budding talent in bows to learn waning shot, and Ritza is a close quarter specialist, so perhaps when the bow was forged, there was a descendant of Lemine that was particularly skilled with a bow, and so that's why it was made there. In Irish myth, the Tathlum was actually a sling stone famously used by Lugh Lavada to strike the giant named Balor of the Evil Eye. These Irish stones, also known as brain balls, were actually pretty disgusting in their creation, often being crafted using the blood and brains of their defeated enemies, lime, and whatever else to create a hard, slingable projectile. In the poem called The Tathlum, it describes the titular stone and its use. Created by the warrior Brian, he combined the blood of toads, bears, vipers, and a lion, the torso of the warrior Osman, and the sand of both the Armorian and Red Sea, gave the stone to Lugh, who would then use it to down the giant. Járngreipr. These are gauntlets attuned to the crest of Keyhole, wielded by Count Leopold Berglis, Caspar's father. In the game, Leopold uses them exclusively, but in Caspar's paralogue, he passes down the gauntlets to his son, despite him not having any crest at all. Unlike the Spear of Assal's Irish mythological origin, this Keyhole-attuned weapon's inspiration comes from Norse myth and the famous Thor. Járngreipr translates to iron grippers / gauntlets, and are worn by Thor specifically to handle the Mjolnir upon wielding it. It is theorized that the gauntlets were necessary because Broker, one of the two dwarves who forged the hammer, was being attacked while working the bellows by Loki, who took the form of a gadfly to sabotage him. When Loki bites him in the eye, Broker has to wipe the blood away, but this momentary pause in providing oxygen to feed the fire causes the axe handle to solidify prematurely, shortening the handle's length, and so it is theorized that the brothers forged the Járngreipr afterwards so Thor could actually use the now one-handed hammer for more control over it while protecting his wrist from getting shattered. In my opinion, the design of the Three Hopes weapon represents the protective purpose of the mythological gloves. They're not just your typical gauntlets, they are literally bucklers with a retractable blade. Leopold uses their defensive capabilities in his battle against Holst in that really cool cutscene between them. Amalthea is a sacred tome attuned to Sethlin and is acquired by S-ranking Azure Gleam's Chapter 14 story mission. The tome's book face has an image of a goat. This directly references the goat Amalthea in Greek myth, who became Zeus's foster mother. When the Titan Rhea was pregnant with Zeus, she fled to Mount Ida to protect him from her husband and his father, Cronus. Cronus had learned of a prophecy that one of his children would overthrow him eventually, so he swallowed his children as soon as they were born. To further protect Zeus, Rhea left him in the care of Amalthea, a figure most often depicted as either a nymph or a goat. Amalthea represents themes like abundance, nurturing, and protection, all traits that describe Saint Sethlin, and Flayn of course, well. This is one of the most on-the-nose mythological references for a weapon in the game. Not that that's a bad thing, I think it's just a humorous contrast to something as subtle as the other weapons. The Caduceus Staff. This staff is acquired in 3 houses after completing the Ocean View paralogue and provides +1 range with magic when equipped. Like Amalthea, the visual representation of the staff is quite on the nose. In Greek myth, it's Hermes' staff. Some origins of the staff's design say that the 2 snakes represent the friendship between Hermes and Apollo. Another Greek myth states that the imagery is of 2 snakes doing the deed, and another is that Mercury, the Roman version of Hermes, saw 2 snakes fighting, stuck his staff between them, and they immediately made peace. Hermes was a messenger of the gods, whose wings represented his ability to deliver messages and mediate between them at rapid speed. More literally, the Caduceus is often confused with the Rod of Asclepius as a symbol of medicine. They're very similar looking staves, but one represents medicine and the other doesn't. There's some interesting contention between these 2 symbols. The Caduceus and Hermes mainly concerns itself with the protection of commerce, negotiation, and the delivery of information. It's not only not representing medicine, but is also ironically saying that healthcare is a business, whereas the Rod of Asclepius has only one snake coiled around the rod, with a major focus and symbolism being strictly medicine. In 3 houses, the Caduceus Staff being a sacred healing staff used by Saint Sethlin during the War of Heroes contributes to this confusion. What makes it even more humorous, to me at least, is that the Rod of Asclepius is in the game already, but is wielded by Cornelia, whose flavor text said it was created using ancient technology, and has a special effect of giving Cornelia +3 protection and +2 magic attack, which doesn't exactly scream medicine. The Scroll of Talos. The Scroll of Talos is a sacred weapon attuned to Saint Noah and is first seen in 3 Hopes after S-ranking Chapter 14 story mission in Scarlet Blaze. In Greek myth, Talos was famously a bronze automaton protecting the island of Crete, mainly by hurling giant boulders at incoming ships. Talos was almost invincible, but the sorceress Medea tricks Talos into exposing his ankle, his one vulnerable area, which hardly protected the one vein in his entire body coursing with ichor, the blood of the gods. Once his ankle was cut open, he eventually bled out and was defeated. The connection between the game and the myth is pretty loose relative to the other weapons. The book face has a hooded robed figure with a staff. This is probably literally Noah herself, but it may also be Hephaestus, the Greek god of blacksmiths, carpenters, fire, and so on, who is theorized to be the creator of Talos himself. Regardless, Talos represents divine protection as the guardian of Crete. The tome's effect, like Amalthea, boosts the healing effects to units with the crest of Noah. So basically, it enhances the ability for Constance to heal and protect her allies. The Ochain Shield. This sacred shield is attuned to the crest of Keyhole. In the story, the shield was originally created by Indech and Macule to be given to Saint Keyhole, but Saros gave it to Emperor Wilhelm. When Wilhelm eventually died, the shield was returned to Indech. In 3 houses, the shield can be reclaimed from thieves in the paralogue Retribution by saving all the villagers. In 3 Hopes, it is given to Shez after completing the paralogue The Saint's Forge. This shield is a reference to the shield mentioned in the tidings of Conover MacNessa, a fictional king of Ulster in the Ulster cycle. The Ochain was his personal shield, and is described as having 4 rims of gold around it. The 4 rims of gold around the shield are represented in 3 houses by the shield's intricate circular design. The lion head may represent monarchy and royalty, but could also be a reference to the magical properties of the Ochain shield. As in several translations of the Irish epic, upon the shield being struck, it cries out to the other shields of the Ulstermen. To quote one translation, however great the strength and power with which Fergus smote Conover on the shield, so great also was the might and valor wherewith Conover held the shield. And so it's possible that the shield being able to cry out or groan/moan, the literal translation of Ochain, upon the king being attacked is a defense mechanism that 3 houses chose to represent with a lion. In a trivia video that researches mythology, you never know exactly what kind of connections the developers may have intended with the references they used, but part of the enjoyment from Theorycraft videos and lore deep dives is trying to imagine what the developers may have intended with respect to symbolism when they make these references. Writing these kind of videos, I go in with the concession that connections I make can be completely headcanon. At the same time, it's entirely possible that one could have not gone deep enough into what the developers may have intended. There is a 3 houses lore bible at Intelligence Systems somewhere, but until that hits the internet, I'm content to keep digging into Fódlan more and more. Like I mentioned at the beginning, we've got a whole other half of weapons and the symbolism behind them to dive into, so until that day comes, I hope you learned something new today. Please don't forget to leave a like and comment down below your thoughts on the stories and theories discussed in this video, as it helps the video get seen by more and more people. And with that all said, happy holidays, and I'll see you in the next video. Deuces.
You